to be able to, in the face of a negative surprise or an adversity or a new door that opens, to actually jump through it, to be comfortable with some ambiguity, and to be comfortable with maybe making a decision that without, in an environment of still a lot of unanswered questions. And so if I think introspectively, I have to credit the luxury of just growing up in Silicon Valley, I think.
Well, hello and welcome to Innovation Insights. Today I'm here with Mark Bivens, founding partner at Shizen Capital. Mark, it's great to have you here.
I always jump at the opportunity to sit with you, Victor. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Always a pleasure to talk with you. So can you tell us a little bit about your journey and how did you end up being an app coach in Tokyo?
Happy to explain how I became a NAP coach. So that's an aspirational title. But first of all, thanks, Victor. It's nice to sit down with you. So maybe to start, to give a bit of context in my personal journey, can I ask you a question?
Of course, anytime.
Have you ever heard of the Valley of Heart's Delight? Do you know what that is? The Valley of Heart's Delight.
I don't know, but you can explain it to us and the audience. That's perfect.
You can make a guess if you like. But so several decades ago, there was an area that was covered in apple orchards and orange groves.
Okay.
And this area was Santa Clara County in Northern California. Today, this area is actually known as Silicon Valley.
So we changed the apples and the oranges for silicon?
That's right. The apples were replaced by silicon. Even though I'm half French, by luck, privilege, happenstance, I was born in this area several decades ago, back in the 70s. So I'm in high school. I actually went to the very same high school that a couple decades earlier Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak attended, so the founders of Apple.
Yeah.
And it was very much this spirit. We didn't realize we were part of something unique at Silicon Valley, but it was a spirit of let's just be entrepreneurs, or let's build things, let's create, let's build businesses. When I was 15, I took on a paper route, delivering the local newspapers on my bicycle. And then one of my neighborhood kids, he was more industrious than me, and he persuaded me that we lock up distribution for the entire town. Not only the San Jose Mercury News, which is what we were distributing at the time, but also something called the Peninsula Times Tribune from Palo Alto. And then we hired junior high school kids. So I was a high school kid, as was Dan. We hired junior high school kids and paid them pennies, basically, to actually deliver the papers. So we were the very first capitalists in our own lives at the age of 15. So.
The first experience there.
Yeah, it was a first experience, and that pretty much shaped me and my journey. I don't know but that mentality that was pervasive, I think, of that area, that whole region, and so that inspired me to always kind of think like this, like a good graduate of a Silicon Valley high school. I went on to do an engineering degree, electrical engineering. Later, I went into business. I wasn't a very good entrepreneur, but I created some companies.
Okay, so what was your first experience as a founder? I mean, you go there. I mean, you have this background. You've been breathing all of this. You went basically inherited it naturally, and then you study electrical engineer. At that time, it's semiconductors, and everything is about that. Very good corporate offering, probably, for you to get a job. And what triggers you to do the first startup?
Yeah, it really just felt like it was the way to demonstrate wisdom and intelligence and success was to build something. It felt like joining, it's maybe almost the flip side of the culture in Japan, but joining a large company felt kind of like plan B. Whereas building your own thing, creating yourself, being your own boss, that was considered the mark of success, the badge of success, I think. Yeah. So there was probably that peer pressure.
Okay.
But there was also just the general sentiment of being able to be completely accountable to yourself and ultimately later potentially to your investors.
Yeah.
That it's at the same time simultaneously exhilarating, daunting, stressful, But then also just a moment that you look back, even the failures, you look back with happy nostalgia.
Right. So what did you learn? Because you funded like 2 or 3 companies, right? And some of them probably were successful, some of them were a failure, some of them was in the middle. I'm not sure. I mean, you can tell us about it. But I'm more interested about what did you learn in that journey as a founder?
Sure. So maybe just to correct the record, I founded 3 companies and 2 were failures.
Okay.
Total failures. And meaning I either in the first case lost all the money of my investors and a girlfriend. And in the
a complete failure there.
Total failure. In the second case, I was able to return some of the money to my investors, but it didn't.
Semi-failure.
Yeah.
We are growing there. We're growing there. There's a trend.
But the third one, which was a success, it was a success in spite of me. It was a success because it was a timing issue, which comes to the first lesson, which is timing. Actually, it's a secret that not a lot of founders and certainly very few VCs will admit, but it plays such a large factor in determining success. Now, this company, it happened to be a company that was related to software on the web, sold in 1999.
Oh, just in time.
Yeah, the peak of the bubble, just before the crash. So
it's both timing. It's timing of the application and the development you did, but timing on the exit.
Incredible timing of the exit. And I remember, so the buyer, it was a listed software firm. They bought us. We were a team of 10. They had a stipulation in their contract that 9 people in the company, I was the CEO, 9 people stay on after the acquisition to continue to run the business. And they had to commit to that, and there was a retention bonus for them. But then the 10th person, which was me, had to commit to leave the next day.
So what was the logic of that agreement for you, from your perspective?
Yeah, so the way my co-founder and I, of course, joke about it. My co-founder was really the brains behind the operation. I had the title, but he built the product. He operated the company really effectively. I was just the mouthpiece for it, really. But he and I joke, and he used to say, well, think of it this way. The buyer, I won't name them, but the big listed firm, the buyer, they already have a CEO. So it was a blow to the ego at the time, to be fair. Now looking back, it turns out I got the much better deal because I was free. I had a payout. I could go do the next thing, and which could have been start another company. But one of the VCs who invested in us, he took pity on me. I was unemployed, basically.
Right.
And so he gave me shelter. He took me on board. He taught me the business of venture capital.
Okay.
He was just a great mentor, an older gentleman, and just really took me under his wing, and made me realize something. I learned 2 things. I learned first that I sucked less at the business of venture capital than at the business of actually building companies.
There you go.
And the second thing, though, and perhaps the most important thing, is I learned that I really love venture capital. And so I decided, okay, this was probably the biggest learning for shaping my future trajectory, is this is what I want to do. I need to figure out a way to do it. This guy, Mick, who took me under his wing, he had an opportunity for me, but then the .com bubble kind of did collapse. Yeah. So I worked with him for a while, but I just had a sense that the wave was shifting, and for a couple personal reasons too, I wanted to explore the other side of my I guess passion and family connections, which is move to Europe.
Okay.
And so I moved to Paris in late 2000 to try venture capital there.
Right. So I just need to ask you something before we go into the next chapter, which is how do you start this venture capital new kind of drive in a different complete environment, and what takes you to do that? But you talk about a moment that's a hard moment. I mean, you are basically getting a hit 2 ways. First in the ego, and second into what the heck do I do now? And they don't value me because this is happening. But you are taking that and changing it into an opportunity. So how do you mentally do that? I mean, I think that's a valuable experience for people to understand. Any circumstance you can turn into a positive way that drives you into the next chapter.
I think you've actually hit the crux of it. It's so interesting, and I wish I could say there's a formula for how I did it. I think another point that sometimes we discuss is what do we look for as investors in founders now? And it's very much that capacity to be able to do that sort of thing, to be able to, in the face of a negative surprise or an adversity or a new door that opens, to actually jump through it, to be comfortable with some ambiguity, and to be comfortable with maybe making a decision that without, in an environment of still a lot of unanswered questions. And so if I think introspectively, I have to credit the luxury of just growing up in Silicon Valley, I think.
Right.
So it never really bothered me as a risk that there wouldn't be some opportunity. What Silicon Valley offered was, I guess, a social safety net.
Yeah.
So I fail, people give me an opportunity, or they don't frown upon me, and I'm not bringing shame upon my family or anything.
There are two avenues here that I want to explore, but I'm going to go into, you are now moving into a completely different environment in France. You have some connections there, but you're starting a new business for you that you just were trying in Silicon Valley in a complete different landscape in the middle of this .com that I remember also when it was happening. So like, oh my God, this is all the tech is going to go down. You have the telecom part in Europe, which is a little bit different, and that was still there. But it was the kind of a shaky environment, and it's new, and you are going into VC that is not so developed in France. So what do you do there? How did you start?
I discovered another thing about myself, which is I love being somewhere when it's a bit too early.
Okay.
And I had arrived in France, and it was a bit too early. And good in the sense that because it was too early, they didn't experience the same euphoria and collapse that Silicon Valley did around a tech bubble and a venture, which was very connected to venture investing. And so there was some stagnation, but there was never really things had not climbed to certain heights. So there was not much of adjustment. And I remember I didn't have, at the time, I had to later reapply and obtain my French nationality, but at the time I just had a US passport. And so employing me wasn't easy, required some paperwork and a commitment and a sponsorship. And
you were there like a tourist for a moment, right?
A little bit, yeah. So there was a risk, and even people, in fact, some of my classmates from business school, brilliant people, smart, much smarter than I am, telling me, "You're going to France? What a mistake! You should, stay in the U.S. Wait, you want to go to France and do venture capital? Those words don't even go together."
At that time, no. It was like, what are you doing?
No, exactly. I mean, it was a paradox of France. There was no venture capital. There was no, even though the word entrepreneur is a French word, there weren't any in France at the time. I was lucky because it was early, and I had this. And there was an emergence of a very niche emergence of people that wanted to build venture capital funds. Yeah. And there were some startups that were brewing. The government very wisely put in place some measures that helped catalyze that a little bit the year before I arrived. And so I arrived. Here's a guy who created 3 companies, 2 failures, worked in VC for about 18 months in the US, American, from Silicon Valley, perfect for the narrative, perfect on a slide. Maybe I know something too, but the main thing was we have an American guy from Silicon Valley on our slide. We can raise a fund with that. So actually I had a couple job offers pretty quickly just because of how I looked, and I could speak French, and I just fit the bill. First I joined a fund, and a couple partners. We had 3 fantastic, in the end 5 actually, fantastic partners who brought me in. I was the most junior person. I was discovering France. I was discovering the startup system in France. Yeah. I remember actually one of my partners, I had 2 bosses basically. One of my bosses, as I introduced myself, he pulled me aside one day and he said, "Mark, I know you're proud of these 2 failures. When you talk about your intro, you say, 3 companies, 2 out of 3 failed. But that doesn't go over very well in France. Failure is not viewed positively.
I just can see the conversation, yes, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, it was...
Stop talking about failure.
And so I listened to him and followed his advice for a while, but then after a couple of years, it didn't feel genuine.
Right.
And so I went back to it, and maybe I was a little stubborn, but I felt, well, okay, but failure needs to become acceptable. So how do we make it acceptable? Well, maybe if I talk about it, and let's face it, when you're the venture capitalist and you have the capital to invest, there's a power dynamic that exists.
Yeah.
And so I thought, well, I do have this power dynamic, so let me use that. Let me leverage that.
I'm going to make a pause in your journey because it's super interesting.
Sure.
But I want to go back to that item you mentioned before is, what do you look in a founder when you go to invest? Because by now, when you're starting your own VC, you have something in you that is telling you, I can do this. So I kind of started to know how to look into a founder that will get those companies you are saying that enough will be successful, you will look good, you will return to the LPs. And now you have that experience. You have grown. So I don't want to dig into what did you look at that time. But now, with all your wisdom of years of experience, what have you learned? What do you look when you meet a founder? What triggers you into saying, yeah, this is an interesting one? And then what triggers you into, yes, I'll close the deal, which are two different moments.
Yeah, actually, great question, and also very smart to make that distinction, because these are two different moments. And so we're investing, most of my career I've been investing, and certainly with Shizen Capital here in Japan, we're investing in early stage companies.
Yep.
What does that mean? That means that there's not a lot of history behind. That means that there's a heavy dependency on the mettle, on the ambition, on the quality of the founder itself. And so we're really evaluating the founder. Of course, we want to understand, are they building something that the market will want? Is there a market for what they're building? How do they think about their vision and their product roadmap? But more importantly, how are they going to adapt as new information comes in? So adaptability, I guess, would be, if I made a list of some of the key criteria, this would be one of the top items, adaptability. Actually, I'll share an anecdote. One of the founders that we've backed here, I won't name him, but he has a young daughter. He told me he took her to an amusement park, and she wanted to go on the craziest roller coaster there. So with loops and up and steep drops and climbs, and for what seemed an interminable amount of time. She's screaming, everybody's screaming. And the founder, he says to me, that whole journey, I felt nothing. Compared to his journey as a founder with the punches and the kicks in the gut and the highs and the lows and a customer promises something, the next day they break their promise, and an investor does the same. And it's so having that ability to accept that things will not go according to plan.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean don't plan. Definitely plan, but don't over plan.
Yeah.
And so this adaptability. Another criteria I would throw in is a bias for action. So starting and building a company requires, in my opinion, and I think VCs have to have this quality as well, you have to be comfortable with making decisions with imperfect information. If we had perfect information, there would be no market. The market would already be addressed. Yeah. Google would be doing it, or OpenAI would be doing it, or Facebook, or whomever. So we're talking about building something new. And so it means being able to move forward with limited information. And this is where sometimes there's a dichotomy between the founder and the VC. The founder, if he's capable or she's capable of doing that and has that ambition to do it, the VC, sometimes there's a tendency, especially in, let's call them more nascent emerging VC markets, which I would say Japan is. It's a tendency to, well, let's wait until we get more information in, because more information reassures us and gives us more comfort in being able to make a decision. I argue that that's not in the VC's interest either, but that creates a bit of a divergence. So that's definitely a quality as well, this bias for action. And then I guess the third, which I've kind of mentioned implicitly here, is, does the founder have some ambition to build something? Because that ambition is that they're going to need to dig deep on some days. That's going to need to drive them through. And when they reach a point where they were expecting that 18 months they would be in a state where they can raise their Series A round or something, and they don't hit the 18 months as the playbook says, how do they, what's going to push them to keep going? 3 qualities that I would say are top.
Okay, but we talk about 2 moments, and one was when do you meet the founder, the other was when you decide to invest. What is different in this second moment?
Thanks for coming back to that distinction. So indeed, so we meet the founder, we have all these informal conversations. Ultimately, we start to get a feel for, okay, this is a founder that we would like to back. Now let's look with a little more scrutiny at what exactly are they trying to build, how realistic is it. With our network at Shizen Capital, we have the luxury of having, I think, about 170 LPs who are a lot of individuals, all experts in their own fields. So we can tap them for expertise. So we'll go through this, but quite quickly, by the way, within a few days or a week or something max, not 6 months of due diligence. I don't believe in that, and that's another conversation. But then we will, if all things check out, we will start the conversation quickly with the founder of an investment. We will, or we will, if they don't check out, we will tell the founder very quickly, we're not going to invest now. Don't count on us. We will not give a maybe. I think the maybe is the worst answer a VC can give. It's disrespectful to the founder. We will give a clear no, or we will give a clear signal that we want to invest. Now let's start this process of investing. And we'll make a proposal. We will not, for example, ask for lots of sensitive information or introductions to all the founder's customers, if they have customers, so we can interview them for our internal reports before making a proposal, an investment proposal. We will do that once we've made a proposal, so the founder knows we're seriously planning to invest. We're not going to waste time and collect information. We're not on a fishing expedition. We're not, we respect your customers. We don't want to disrupt any conversation with them, especially if they spend time with us and then it turns out there's no investment. Then that hurts your business potentially. So we will make an investment offer, and we make it that one that it's my co-founder, by the way, Matthew, he's a founder himself, more recently than me, a very successful one here in Japan. So we're both founders. So when we're investing, we're coming up with an investment proposal that is very reasonable. There are certain measures we have to have, protective measures, because remember, we have customers that are our LPs, and certain rights on information, and certain things need to be approved by us. But we're not draconian, and we're very clear about that. And so we'll have this investment conversation with the founder, and we'll learn a lot about the founder in that. How are they? It's amazing. Are they hung up on valuation, for example? Are they hung up on having control of the company all the time? Are they, which isn't necessarily, it could be a yellow flag, but it's not necessarily a deal breaker, but it says something about them. Or are they really interested to have a proposal and then shop around and look for have a lot of VCs join? Or are they more inclined to, we see an opportunity here on the table to take some capital, and let's start. Do they want to spend a 12 months fundraising, or do they want to secure their funding quickly because they're eager to get back and start building? That says a lot, actually. And so we will, in this process, we will learn a lot about the founder. Usually by then, it's somewhat self-selecting that we've already correctly assessed that the founder has what we think. So it usually goes well. There's only a few exceptions, maybe, where we discover something in the investment conversation that just doesn't quite sit right, and so we back off. So that's the other. We also, by the way, we learn a lot about other investors.
Right.
So it's a really revealing process.
Right. No, I love that one, because it will absolutely tell you a lot of things when you start having those more detailed conversations, and then you undick all of that. I want to understand also, how do you choose a partner? Because that's different from choosing a founder or choosing an investor. This is a complete different relationship. And regardless of this being mad or not mad in general, because you have partners before or you join others, how do you go also about that? And especially in an emerging market like this one, where you don't know exactly how things are going to pan out.
Actually, that's a fantastic question. And I haven't given it a lot of thought, but I could probably distill it to maybe two laws that I've discovered in my journey. So there's choosing a partner in my venture capital fund, and there's choosing a co-founder in my startups.
Exactly, yeah.
And so if I think back, maybe let's start with the startups. I think back 2 out of 3 failed. The one that was successful, I had a fantastic co-founder. Now with Shizen Capital, I have a fantastic partner. And maybe if I could distill it to really 2 pragmatic lessons. So either partner with an Armenian, that was my co-founder of Birdview that I sold.
The first one.
Or partner with Matt Romaine. So, I mean, with Matt, we're so complementary in our experiences and skill sets, and yet we share the same values and the same, I think, ambition and ability to want to experiment.
Right.
And so because we share those values, and yet our skill sets are different. Matt, he's native Japanese speaker, Japanese national, in fact, knows how to navigate Japan, has the credibility, the street credibility among Japan's founder community. I mean, he's a hero. He's probably the first or one of the first Japanese startup founders who raised VC money from overseas.
Right.
Over a decade ago, 15 years ago. Atomico, for example, invested. Yeah, that was a big deal.
Very big deal, yeah.
Intel Capital. And so he's well known. He's the humblest of people. You know him, so this is no surprise to you. And because of that, he's highly respected among the founder community. And then I, in contrast, I'm a little bit older, and he's a more recent founder, so my founder chops are kind of dated. This is the 90s when I created companies. Since then I've been more on the investment side. And most of my investment career was in France, which, like European countries, it's not as simple an environment as Silicon Valley to get things done.
Yeah.
So sometimes, the necessity creates creativity or invention. And so we came up with all kinds of creative workarounds to do stuff under French law, which is more complex, or Belgian law, or German law, or Spanish law, which was more complicated to get things done than, say, U.S. California law. Well, it turns out that that's actually a pretty good muscle to have in Japan.
It is indeed, yes.
So I think that combination of this forced creativity of finding solutions in a non-ideal environment of Europe plays well here. That's something I bring. The credibility, knowing how to navigate Japan. I should also mention, by the way, Matt's a fantastic engineer and really has a good eye for products. And so when we're evaluating digital products, he's strong in this. And so we have this complementarity that's
so I'm seeing complementarity, and seeing chemistry and shared vision and passion.
Totally, and shared values.
Shared values.
A great summary. Exactly.
Okay, fantastic. One thing that is unique in your fund is that you said 20, 30 LPs, but that's because you are looking into angel investment, and you are doing a syndication of angel investment, and that's something you learn in France to do, and then you're bringing here to Japan. But I want to ask you, what is different, because you're in early stage, so it's a very good tool to have, as you were mentioning. What makes it different to have LPs that are more institutional than having a syndication of angels? What are the pros, what are the cons, and how do you use that in your advantage to be successful?
Sure. Yeah, that's a great point. And I realized that I wasn't fully complete in your question about why early stage. And so the investment thesis behind early stage in Japan is, in our opinion, early stage venture in Japan presents the best asymmetric upside for financial return, risk-reward basis in the world right now. Maybe outside of Bitcoin or something, but it's a market where Japan is still very nascent relative to Silicon Valley or Europe or China in terms of startups. It is also a market where there is capital. There's a ton of capital in Japan.
There is.
Institutional capital, corporate capital, over a couple trillion, I think, dollars, US dollar equivalent on balance sheets of Japan's corporates. Institutional capital of pension funds, I think second or third largest in the world now. Yet most of that capital is still very conservative. and not even the most risk-seeking end of the spectrum of that capital is not generally ready for early stage investing in startups. Seed stage investing is almost always Series A and later,
Yep.
or pre-seed, or if there's no PowerPoint, or there's no customer, or no product.
But it's also the following mentality of the safety you were mentioning before. Some of the VCs, they say, oh, this is too early, I want to be sure.
Yeah, exactly, and waiting for more information and more validation. And so it's understandable, and in some ways the VCs, if their source of capital has a certain risk profile or risk appetite or lack of risk appetite, well then naturally they also have to be cautious too. So it's not necessarily a lack of vision of them, it's they're serving their customers, the VCs. And but what does that mean? That means that just almost mathematically, if there's not a lot of capital for the early projects, then the capital for the early projects, there's almost an arbitrage opportunity. So the valuations of these companies might be disproportionately low relative to the risk they present.
Yeah.
So they do present high risk, but that can be on the spectrum of risk versus valuation and reward potential. There's a factor there that can be leveraged. Similarly, it follows that at the growth stage, when all this conservative capital now is ready because there's some validation, we have a product, we have product market fit, we have some customers, we have revenue, we have maybe a clear path to profitability, if not already profitable. Then there's a lot of capital.
Yeah.
When there's a lot of capital, this is supply and demand economics, and we see this all the time, it pushes the valuation maybe disproportionately high relative to the risk. And so from an investment thesis, this makes sense to invest, buy low, sell high, basically. Don't overpay. Don't invest in a frothy environment or something. So it is a little bit frothy at the growth stage in Japan right now. By the way, I saw this play out in France as well. A similar thing happened, and it's kind of there are different views. One view is to say, we need to be more risk-seeking. We need to be less risk-averse and less conservative in Japan. People were singing this in France 25 years ago too, and eventually the country evolved, mentality changed, but that's a shift in mentality. That takes years. But on the other hand, if you come in with capital and you have a financial obligation to generate returns, for example, to your LPs, well, you have to accept the market for what it is and then figure out how to position in it. And so that's what we've done. It works well because, like I said earlier, we like doing early stage stuff. We're former founders. We like to deal with founders. So that's that. I'm telling you this because it answers the question, but also answers your earlier question, but also sets me up to answer your current question, which is what is unique about it. So because the other observation is because the market is nascent. This is not a place where everybody is a repeat entrepreneur. Okay, already being an entrepreneur it's becoming more acceptable, but it's still kind of, you were a rebel to do it. That's and this is I'm witnessing this change just over the past 8 years. But there's not a plethora of people that just keep coming back to be entrepreneurs. And so there are a lot of first-time people, which is good, and we love first-time entrepreneurs. We love to support them. But it's even more helpful to have a lot of experts around that can provide that additional support. So we know there are certain things we can bring, but to really to generate ultimately our obligation, good financial return, which means really support these companies and give them the best chances of success and the best expertise. We wanted to assemble a network of people who would bring that. And there are different ways to do it. You can pay them, but that's very capital intensive. But we figured out a way to do it, inspired by the French model and the UK model. We copied it, as you alluded to. I'm happy to explain it in detail, but it's a little technical. But it's basically a way that allows individuals that have expertise, they don't have to be high net worth, they just have to have a decent salary. They can invest and they can deduct a big chunk of their investment from their taxable income. And so there's a tax incentive for them to do it.
Right.
And when they invest, they then have a vested interest in the success of these companies.
Right.
So we're not paying them. They actually, and it's self-selecting. They want to do it because they actually maybe want to help.
Right.
Some might have a lot of time, some have very limited bandwidth, but all of them share the fact that they appreciate startups, they're curious about them, if they can be helpful, they will be helpful. And this, to me, is the rich treasure chest of value that we can bring these early stage startups that are building. It's
going
really
back
powerful.
to your creativity, I mean, you figure out a way to have these twofold markets. On the one side, you get the investment. On the other side, you get the expertise for the founders, and it works. And then you have also this knowledge that helps you in the environment you're operating. So I love it. It's a fantastic example and a fantastic model here. For a person that is thinking, hey, I want to become an investor, maybe they have the experience, maybe they just love to invest and have that passion. What would be your advice to a person that wants to go into this direction?
Well, maybe let's start generally. So generally speaking, I would say when you're a young person, it seems that the most important thing when you're young, maybe in just finishing, say, university, is to find a good job with a good career path and a stable income, perhaps. It does seem like that. And there's a lot of maybe family and societal expectations that you carry at that. But to me, the most important thing, because that will come, the most important thing is to actually figure out what you would like to do. That's the hardest. And if you can, and that's, in my opinion, almost the key to happiness, is figuring it out. And the time to start trying to figure it out is early, not later, because later then you have obligations, you need income, you need to support people perhaps. So that would be my first advice. And then let's say you do that and you say, I'm determined to be a VC. VC is just, that's how I want to. Well, to me, I believe, and this is the Silicon Valley mentality talking, but I really believe it's true. It's true in France. I believe it's true in Japan as well, which is if you take a long enough time horizon, you will become what you want to be. If you expect that you're going to become a VC in the next 3 months and get a job, and you're going to try, and then 3 months happen and you don't have any job offers and maybe a couple conversations, you'll be disappointed. But if you take a long enough time horizon to say, okay, I'm going to find my way into it and I'm going to be focused on reaching it, it will happen before you expect it.
Right.
And so one way is, for example, intern in VC funds and then maybe build some relationships with them. Who knows, that could potentially lead to a job. We hired one of our interns, actually, so it can. In Japan, in particular, very few VCs, in fact, hard for me to name one, probably a couple, are former founders.
Yeah.
Matt and I are. We consider that pretty unique. If you become a founder or work in a startup and you want to be a VC in Japan, that would be my advice as perhaps one of the best preliminary careers before being one, for two reasons. One, it will probably expose you to venture capital and open some doors for you.
Yeah.
But two, and maybe more importantly, if your goal is to become a VC, I would argue that's a fine goal. I mean, I'm happy doing it and I commend you for it. But your goal should not just end there. It should not just be to become a VC. It should be to become a good VC, to become effective as a VC. And to be effective as a VC and to be a good VC, if you have founder experience or startup experience, you'll be a lot more capable to maybe add value and be effective and show empathy with the founders that you want to back and maybe get in the better deals and build the relationships. And so there are career paths of straight out of university, then join a VC and stay in it. But after a decade or so of doing that, you realize you're kind of limited because you weren't exposed to anything else. Almost much better to have worked in a startup for, say, 5 years or something. Or even a large company in the industry that's very advanced and high tech, for example, that you would later be investing in. Or particular domain expertise or biotech or something that could then lead to VC.
Yeah, all right. Thank you. Thank you very much. That was very comprehensive. For the audience, if they want to follow your journey or Shizen Capital, how should they do that?
Thanks for the offer. for Shizen Capital, you can go to our website, shizen.vc, so shizen.vc, and you can see our portfolio. You can also read some of our ramblings. If you like some of our ramblings and you want to read more of them, or if you just have trouble sleeping at night, you can go to my blog, which is rude.vc, rude.vc. And there you can probably get a pretty good insight into my own twisted worldview, cure for insomnia, like I said, and also get an idea of what we're interested in.
That's a part of the nap coach, and now I get the connection.
Now we came full circle to the nap coach, yes. So
exactly. Thank you so much,
yes.
Mark. It was lovely to talk with you.
My pleasure, Victor. It's always a pleasure. Thanks.
Thank you very much.